shillings a year. And that has to do a lot of things. I mentioned, for instance, when you have a government which is crowding out the private sector, and the growth is being driven by public spending, debt, finance public spending, then the private sector, the share of the economy is shrinking, and therefore your revenue base is shrinking. You can't undo these things overnight. Yeah, but you said we've been very clear. If you go, that's why the list of priorities that I gave, priority number 1, I think number 3 was the revenue base. We need to do that. We need to get that.
To widen the revenue base.
Yes.
But you continue to tax those who...
No, what happens is that inevitably, if your revenue base is narrow, the burden on those who are in the tax base is very high. So the only way to lower the burden on those who are in the tax base, tax net, is to expand the base. In other words, you're saying in Kenya today, half the people, half the workforce are below the tax net. People say that they're not outside. They are below because their incomes are not taxable. They are too low. Okay? So it means that the people you are taxing, bearing the entire burden is only half. So the only way to lower the burden on this half is to raise the incomes of those who are below the taxable income, to raise their productivity so that they contribute. And you're not saying that they actually, you're even talking about income tax. Our single largest tax is VAT. It's a consumer tax, it's an indirect tax. But then if you look at the people at the bottom, the only things they consume are necessities which are VAT exempt or zero rated. So they're actually not contributing to tax at all. So if people below the minimum wage, people below sort of 10, 12,000 shillings personal incomes probably are not buying goods. They've got very few goods which are taxable. So unless you actually, that's what I mean expanding the tax, unless you raise the incomes of people at the bottom, the truth is the tax burden on those at the top will be very high.
So, and I hear you on this, but we have a viewer this evening. Can we put up that first tweet? Who sent in this message? And I think it aligns quite a bit with what we saw in our business news. Let's have that first tweet up. This is what it's saying. Let me see if I can. Geoffrey M. says, there are those who say that the government's obsession with increasing taxation is counterproductive. Winston Churchill famously said, for a nation to try to tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to lift himself up by the handle.
I don't know where they get this, that we are increasing taxation. We are not increasing taxation. I'm saying very clearly, we said we are expanding the tax base so that you can lower the tax burden on those who are in the net.
Oh, now, which kind of tax are we talking about? Because during your campaign period, it sounded like progressive tax was more like it, depending on your earning ability. Again, but now it's consumption tax that seems to be
actually, the consumption taxes, if you in the pecking order of taxes, you want to tax wealth, then consumption, then income, and lastly trade. There is an economic logic to it, okay? So income tax actually comes quite low. If you asked me, if we could broaden the VAT base and we begin to get about 10% of VAT, I would probably get rid of payroll tax, the pay-as-you-earn. I would be very happy to replace pay-as-you-earn with a bigger consumption tax.
Or replace, not get rid of?
Replace, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Or at least take many more people off. Take many more people at the bottom of the pay-as-you-earn, the personal tax, and expand indirect taxes. If I could tax more wealth, I would reduce corporate tax.
What is the structure of tax? Because even listening to some of the people who are speaking during our business news, they are concerned about an unstructured changes in the tax regime almost every 6 months, or they're not able to plan, they're not able to tell, can we expand next year because we don't know what new tax the government will introduce. It is absolutely true,
because what had happened is that, as I said, when you have the kind